Hi everyone and welcome to my channel, The Vegan Bae. If you want to learn how I made this vegan blueberry babka, then stick around. So we're first going to start by making the blueberry jam. I've added 2 cups of blueberries to my saucepan. My saucepan is on medium heat. And then we're going to add the juice of a lemon, and I've already removed the seeds from my lemon. You're more than welcome to use whatever fruits you want, so if you wanted to do raspberries or blackberries, it's really up to you. I'm now going to add a cup and 3/4 of granulated sugar. And once your sugar has been completely dissolved, you want to go ahead and turn the heat up so that you can bring your pan to a rolling boil. Remember to continue stirring so that none of your sugar or the jam sticks or burns to the bottom of your pan. So if you have a favorite jam or marmalade that's store-bought and you prefer to use that, then you can totally go ahead and skip this step. I personally like to make my own jams. I do this whenever I'm making my blueberry cheesecake. And honestly, I know what ingredients are going into my jam instead of getting something that's preserved and that's on a shelf. So I'm going to use a fork to smash some of my blueberries. I don't want to completely smash all of my blueberries. I want to use some of them in the end for garnishing. As you can see, it's starting to boil, and the hotter it gets, the thicker the jam is going to get. I'm not going to allow my jam to get extremely thick. Because I'm using this for baking, I still want it to be spreadable, and you'll see what I mean towards the end. So depending on how thick you want your jam to turn out, this process takes about 45 minutes, depending on the consistency that you're looking for. I'm now going to take the jam and I'm going to transfer it into a glass mason jar. And as you can see, it's not as thick as a store-bought jam would look like, and that's okay because it's still hot. So once it cools down, then it'll get a whole lot thicker. So here are those ingredients again for that blueberry jam. Now let's move on to the actual bread. So you're first going to start by activating your yeast. I have 2/3 cups of warm soy milk, and then to that I'm going to add 21 grams of active dry yeast and 1 tablespoon of granulated sugar. Then I'm going to combine and mix this all together so that my yeast can activate. So now we're going to combine our dry ingredients together. You're going to need 2.5 cups of all-purpose flour, 1/4 cup of coconut sugar, and 1/2 teaspoon of salt. You're going to mix and combine this together so that you don't have large clumps of sugar or salt throughout your flour. Once those ingredients are combined properly together, what you now see me doing is creating a well in the middle of my flour. And in there, I'm going to pour 5 tablespoons of melted vegan butter. So now we're going to grab that active yeast that we set aside a few minutes ago. And as you see, it has now doubled in size. Guys, this does not look good and it does not smell great at all. If you know anything about baking or you've baked breads in the past, then you know that active yeast does not have a great smell, but just trust me and trust the process. It's going to do what it needs to do to make your bread amazing. So I'm first going to mix this together by using a wooden spoon, and I'm going to make sure that all my ingredients are combined properly. Then you're going to knead your dough for 10 minutes. It's super important that you knead your dough for 10 minutes because kneading is what activates your gluten and will help your bread rise. If you have a stand mixer, by all means, please go ahead and pull your stand mixer out. I know kneading can be a bit of a workout. So the whole idea behind me wanting to share my vegan recipes with you is because I feel like there's a misconception about what vegans eat or what they can eat. I think everyone thinks that we just eat a bowl of salad and we're satisfied, and that's completely not true. I've made so many different meals that I cannot wait to share with you that mimics or reminds me of the things that we used to eat, and it's healthier. So why not? So what made us recently become vegans was, I feel like we've always had a love-hate relationship with food. We're from the Caribbean, so there's so much to indulge in, so much to enjoy. We love the fried foods. But honestly, it wasn't making me feel good. So I had a really hard time sleeping at night. I had a hard time waking up, and I had zero energy even after 8 hours of sleep. So I did some research and I decided to try a vegan diet, and now it's our lifestyle. I'm definitely going to dive into that process and our transition in another video. And if you've recently been thinking about becoming a vegan or possibly trying a few dishes, not necessarily every day, but maybe once or twice throughout the week, I'll go ahead and I'll discuss in that video what were our highs and our lows. And then also, very important, I plan to discuss like our most favorite snacks. Yes, vegans have snacks. So I'll discuss all that in that video. Okay, so this is where the workout starts, and you're going to knead your dough for 10 minutes. Again, if you have that handy trusty hand mixer, now is the time to bring it out. After kneading your dough for 10 minutes, you're going to cover it and set it aside for 45 minutes. I skipped that process, I didn't show you that. It just wasn't necessary. But this is what my dough looks like after I've set it aside for 45 minutes. It's supposed to double in size and it's going to look bigger and fluffier. And now comes the fun part. So you're going to roll this out so that you're able to grab your store-bought or homemade jam, and this is where we're going to spread that onto our dough. So I was trying to roll this out into a rectangle. I just feel like that would be the better shape for what I was trying to do. But it just wasn't working with me. I just wanted to still be a circle. but it's okay, we're just gonna roll with it. One tip is you wanna make sure that you're not rolling your dough out too thin, because what's going to happen is that when you put your wet ingredients, which is going to be your jam, that will tear your dough if it's too thin. So to avoid doing that, make sure you don't roll it out too thin. So now I'm going to grab that blueberry jam that I made earlier, and I'm first going to create a somewhat of like a border to where I don't want my jam to exceed. And I do that because I don't want the jam to get too close to the edge, because when you roll it, it's going to get extremely messy. And you'll see how thicker the jam looks now than when it did when we removed it from the skillet. If you're using a store-bought jam or a marmalade, it's definitely going to be a thicker consistency than mine. So just a quick tip, I've made this bread at least 3 to 4 different times, and every time I make the bread, I do learn something new, because this is also a learning process for myself. I'm just sharing it with you. And I will say that there's a complete difference with using a homemade jam and something that you bought from the store. There's a different taste. You can taste the freshness from a jam that you personally made than from something that's been sitting on the shelf. Once you have spread the desired amount of jam you would like to use on your dough, you can go ahead and top it off with whatever other ingredients you would like. I'm going to use chopped walnuts. Some other great ideas you can use is maybe some shredded coconut or some almonds. Or if you are completely not vegan, I would have used cream cheese to put in between my bread, just to give it a different texture and a different taste. So now what you're going to do is you're going to tightly roll your dough to form a log. And this is going to be a little bit messy, just depending on how much jam you initially used, which is why I have the parchment paper on the bottom. But if you don't have any parchment paper, it's okay, it's just jam. You can clean it up later. So now you're going to cut the log in half lengthways, and if you need to trim like some pieces off the top, you can go ahead and do so. I normally just seal them as if you would seal a pate, if you've made pates. And then what you want to do is you want to go ahead and carefully twist this to somewhat form a braid. You're not really braiding because you don't have 3 strands. You just want to give it somewhat of a twist. Depending on what color your jam is, this might look like your high school science project, but just trust process. So I wanted to go ahead and mention that the baking dish that you use is very important. That's going to give the shape of your bread when it rises. I didn't have a loaf dish, so I kind of just used what I had. But if you do have a loaf dish, which is deeper and longer, when you cut your bread, it's going to be more of a loaf shape. However, if you don't have a loaf pan or you don't have something similar to the dish that I'm using, another great dish that you can use is the bundt pans, and then you can just take the log and sort of like wrap it around inside the bundt dish, and that would also give it a nice shape, and you can cut those into slices. So now I'm going to use my remainder jam and go ahead and garnish or top it off with some more jam and more of those whole blueberries. And then you want to preheat your oven for 355 degrees. But before you put your bread to bake, you want to let it sit for another 40 minutes before baking. That's very important. So now I'm going to make a lemon glaze to drizzle over my bread once it's done baking. I'm going to use 2/3 cups of powdered sugar and 1 to 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. And then you would mix that together, and you can gradually add your lemon juice in if you think that your glaze is too thick. And then just be sure that you're tasting it just to make sure that it's not too sour and it's not too sweet. If you like this video, maybe you've been thinking about going vegan or simply want to incorporate more healthy meals weekly, go ahead and click like. Be sure to share and subscribe. I can't wait to share so many more recipes that I have, and I have so many great ideas coming up, and I just really want to be able to show you that eating healthy does not have to be boring, and you can still enjoy all the foods that you love. Just do it in a smart way.
Shape on your body tight up, never fall short. I give you the right one. I will never judge you, believe me. Just because you give it up easy, even when the haters are pretty weak. I know you want it just.
And here's the final product. I'm gonna go ahead and grab that lemon glaze and drizzle that on top. I love making this bread on the weekends. It pairs so well with coffee or tea. We definitely love to enjoy it in the mornings, or quite frankly, any given time. It really reminds me of like a classic coffee cake. And the fact that we use coconut sugar, it's definitely not too sweet. So if you're trying to watch your sugar, this is the bread for you. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to hit like, share, and subscribe, and stay tuned for so much more amazing recipes.